Welcome to Surrender School.
So I want to start with the mission statement. The mission statement, be sure you're muted, please. The mission statement for Surrender School is at Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do adhere to the spirit of the traditions because all of us are 12-steppers and all of us love the big book. So we do basically adhere to the traditions as much as possible. Okay, at Surrender School, here is everything that we offer is on the website, so you'll want to check it out. Watch for the chat today because Lori posts a bunch of stuff about all the new things we have and all that out on the chat, so you'll want to take a look at that. In addition to that, we now have a second Zoom room. So you will find when you check out the website at the very underneath each section, it will say which room it's in, and a link to a page that can take you to the correct room. So we really want to encourage everybody and make it as unconfusing as possible. Okay, if Surrender School has helped your recovery, please donate. We're very blessed to have a lot of 12-step people, and 12-step people are accustomed to kind of paying our own way and donating. So just to let you know, everybody who volunteers here, none of us make any money or anything, but there are expenses. So we know that there's the website, there's the Zoom rooms there, and there's 2 different accounts now. And also in 2026 here in Las Vegas, we're going to be having a retreat in 2026 that Dave is leading. And out on WhatsApp, he did say if you're interested in helping with that, let him know. So please do that. It should be lots of fun. I'm looking forward to it very much. Okay, here's some new things that we have going on. Abstinence Recovery, which is Linda's 30 meetings in 30 days that she did, which is the return from relapse or something like that. Anyway, Abstinence and Recovery. And it's recordings of that, and it's recording and writing and sharing. And it's led by Scarlett H. She's facilitating. And basically you watch the 15 to 20 minute session that Linda T did. And then there's some writing and some sharing. So that's every Monday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. There's also an emotional sobriety reading room, a new reading room, and we're reading that book again. And Kim and Dave are going to be leading that Friday mornings at 8 a.m. And then also there's the intuitive eating workshop led by Samantha Comboy, and Samantha, lots of really good information about her. This is intuitive eating, and many of us are at a place now, whereas before maybe we couldn't have done intuitive eating, but now we're kind of curious about that. Maybe we can do that, and maybe that would give us a sense of freedom that we haven't had in our recovery. So anyway, she's doing a first workshop to kind of introduce everybody to the concepts and that kind of stuff. And then from the interest in that will determine what she does as she goes forward. So we're really excited to have Sam on board to do that. And once again, whenever we can get somebody who's an expert in their field, that's very exciting for all of us. One of the things I want to cover is the way our schedule is going to work. We listened to what people said. And the plan basically now is going to be, there'll be 2 weeks of content and breakouts, followed by a week of sharing in the big room, just like office hours, basically. And those who want to come to the 3rd week to kind of share in the big room or listen to the big room, that's great. But some people wanted a break every once in a while, so that kind of gives you a break. Please be aware that when there's breaks like that, it's really hard for people to come back. That's one of the reasons we really like that it was all the time. So please, if you're the type of person that once it's out of your schedule, you don't come back, you'll want to come back for the makeup or office hours. So during the makeup session is when I will cover things that maybe somebody missed or didn't understand or had questions about, but it's also a matter of just sharing and figuring out kind of where we are. So if you take a look at that, last week we did a full session, which means there's training and breakout rooms and sharing, obviously. And then today there's training and breakout rooms for sharing. And then next week is a makeup and office hours. So there'll be no additional content. So if there's nothing recorded, it's just a matter of all of us talking and so forth. And then on 8/3 is a full session, 8/10 is a full session, 8/17. So it's 2 weeks of full sessions with content and everything. And then a week of just coming and sharing and just kind of being together. I'm hoping, I know the office hours are awesome, right? I mean, they're just like amazing hours. So I'm hoping that the same thing happens on Sundays too. That would be great. Notice that we skipped Labor Day. And this allows us to be finished with all of this and all the different steps, all 12 steps before Thanksgiving. And then we have Thanksgiving and the Christmas season and all that. Then everything will just be office hours. So people come if you want to come, if you're free and you want to come and share or come and listen or whatever. We'll talk about Enneagram. We'll talk about 12 steps. We'll talk about the 12 steps by type. We'll, all that for those last few weeks of the year. All right, let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out and to feel your feet on the floor. So just a couple of just normal breaths or deep breaths if you want to, and be completely present. Anything that happened before, just forget all about it. Doesn't matter. Anything that may happen in the future doesn't matter. And just a couple of breaths. Feel your feet on the floor. And now together, let's recite the Surrender School set-aside prayer. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right, the goal of this course is a personal journey, and every single person, I mean, I'm just thrilled because everybody is making this a personal journey for them. It's really interesting. Michael Naylor, I was talking to him. This was February, April, something like that. And I was talking to him about Friendly Circle Berlin. He was doing things for Friendly Circle Berlin. He was doing things for Surrender School, and it was getting to be a lot. He didn't say that, but I thought, oof, this is a lot. So I asked him, do you want to do that? And he said, well, it's a different audience because the Friendly Circle Berlin are curious and the Surrender School people are committed. And I thought that's a beautiful explanation of what is happening here because people are doing the homework as much as you can. And people are coming every week and they're right and really, really working the steps. And as a result of that, things are changing. Okay. So our focus is to help you understand the relationship between your false self, which is that ego self, and your true self. And regardless of your actions, to treat yourself with unrelenting compassion. One of the things that my history at least is I tried to hate myself into recovery, and what I learned is that it isn't the way it works. I have to love myself into recovery. All right, so some things to keep in mind. This whole session is about working the steps by type. So if you don't know your type, you need to take a test so that you will, because it guides you. That tells you kind of which questions to answer and all that kind of thing. And then we do believe that self-contempt stops spiritual growth, or at least stalls it, inhibits it at least. And if you do the work, your recovery will be supercharged. And that's what I keep hearing from people all over the place. So that's really good. Okay. And also remember, you can be a lot of things in this world. So one of the things you want to be is kind. So be kind to yourself and as well as other people. All right. I have this slide every time because it's really important that everybody understand the reason that we ask the questions, the reason you're answering questions, the reason even in here that we're posing questions is because inquiry is a way for us to see our patterns as patterns, our projections are the stories we tell ourselves as the stories we tell ourselves. And the more that we can see that, we see what is currently in our blind spot, it is brought forward and we see it, that's when it begins to dissipate. That's when our greater power can help it to dissipate. And that's where we're at right now in step 7. So we've been coming to this part. All right. Step 7 in the 12 steps is humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. I want to talk about in the breakout rooms, you're going to be sharing your answer to the reflection question for section 2, and then the prayer if you need to. But we are going to share the prayers in the main room at least a little bit, or at least talk about it a little bit. So this is what the 7-step prayer looks like in the big book. All right, my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. So what we have done at Surrender School is kind of rewrite this, because the main reason isn't because we think it's bad, but it's because the way that we are working the steps, where we have one defense we're working on, is different than this. So we want to change the prayer so it matches the way that we are working the steps. Okay, so let's take a fresh look at a 7-step prayer. And this is the way it also sits out at Surrender School. Higher power, and you choose what you call your higher power. I am now willing that you should have all of me, true self and false self. I pray that you now remove from me the defense of whatever defense you picked in step 6. If it stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows, I add in my vulnerability lies my strength, and help me to see my other defenses as I live my life in service to you. Okay, I'm going to talk real quick about the word if. And the reason I want to say that is some people are writing this and saying, because it stands in the way, I want this defense removed because it stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. And in reality, this isn't up to us. This is up to our greater power. This is up to our greater power to decide this or not. So I want to talk for a second about that. If I were a perfectly coiffed with perfect nails, a perfect little body, a perfect blah, blah, blah. And I was never rude and I never said the F-bomb and and I was just like a perfect example of everything. This class would be 100% different than it is right now because I show up warts and all. I show up old, I show up gray, I show up right. And what I want to say here is if I'm deciding what stands in the way, it would be so easy for me to say, I weigh too much to ever do anything of service for people that are compulsive eaters, or I'm too old to be of service to anybody. I don't get to decide that. So because it stands in the way means that I'm deciding whether or not this stands in the way of my usefulness. One of the most important things about step 7, the step 7 prayer, is I don't get to decide that. That is my greater power deciding that. And here's why. All of us have a choice. No, all of us have times when we are a good example. And all of us have times when we are a cautionary tale. We are both, and we're supposed to be both, right? Now, here's what's fascinating for me, and I'm just going to tell you a quick story of what's going on with me. I just had to go on high blood pressure medication. I'm on no medication. I'm 70 years old, and I'm healthier than, I mean, really healthy. I finally just here this past week, actually yesterday I started it. I had to go on blood pressure medication. And I was so upset. I'm so upset, right? And then because I'm working on the step 7 prayer, it's like, wait a minute. I have never been ready. So I'm going to go back in here because I think in order to tell this fully, I do need to share what my prayer is because my prayer is very specific to me. There we go. All right. So let me talk about my prayer. Okay. So the way that I have filled the prayer in is I call, because I tend to think I'm in charge of everything, I don't call anyone like my boss. It's really hard for me to call people my boss, to ask my boss anything, always has been. I'm an 8. So Lord is what I say. Lord, I am now willing that you should have all of me, true self and ego self. I pray that you now remove from me the defense of resistance to wise guidance. If it stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows, in my vulnerability lies my strength. Help me to see my other defenses in my life as I live my life. I've changed this too, in service to you. Now, the resistance to wise guidance. I've always resisted wise guidance. I've talked before. My husband says, "Oh, there's a parking space. I don't care if it's the best parking space in the world. I drive past it." Right? I'm just like I have been just incapable of taking any guidance from anyone. I mean, it's almost insane how much I have resisted that. And where I'm sitting right now, and what it took, I guess, is getting high blood pressure. I'm like, why? This is standing in the way of my service. It does stand in the way of my service too, right? And it's not me deciding that it does. It's just I'm like, it's time. It is time. So that's part of our growth. For me, already I am seeing, because I pray this now 3 times a day, and already I'm seeing that God is helping me get rid of the resistance to wise guidance. My husband recommended that I take this class, and I'm like, whatever. And finally, I went to bed, said the prayer, and went, oh, I should sign up for that class because it ends tonight. So I signed up for a class. It starts tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. And I am determined that I am not, every time I resist, I'm going to say this prayer. Every time I feel resistance, I'm going to say that there are people out there, believe it or not, that are smarter than me, right? And it's like, these are people that know this so well. These are experts that I can actually learn from, right? So this is my prayer. I'm willing that you should have all of me, true self and ego self. I'm giving that ego, that protective ego structure to God. And I'm asking him to basically remove from me, or at least dissipate, this resistance to wise guidance. if it stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows, and I know right now, this is what I know to be the case, it does stand in the way of my usefulness. And so finally, I'm at a place where I can see that, and it's not me deciding it, it's my greater power deciding. So now we are going to share. If anyone wants to share your prayer or thoughts on your prayer, however you want to share. And I know, so Tamara, I don't know if you're here, I can't see you, but last week you're like, that was kind of a broad sharing topic, right? Which makes it really hard for people to share. So I'm going to give you two things that you could share on. You can share your prayer if you'd like to do that, talk about it, share it, or you can share on the process of building your prayer. So one of those two things, that's what we're going to share on right now. Richard, to you.
Thank you, Cher. Appreciate it. I have struggled with this whole idea of a higher power and greater power and creator and all that stuff. So what works for me is my wise and loving guide. That's what I call it. So here we go. Here's my prayer. My wise and loving guide, as we travel through this new path together, I will need from time to time to rely on you to help and support me in my efforts to develop beyond my tendencies towards self-righteousness, rigidity, and self-criticism. I have not been able to grow beyond these on my own, so I ask for your wisdom, love, and support in moving closer to this goal and embodying my true self more and more. I know we together will have a better chance of achieving this rather than my trying to do it on my own. Thank you.
Oh, and I love that because ones tend to want to just be perfect, perfect, and this isn't. It's so gentle and loving. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you, Richard. Joe, to you.
I I'm still sort of writing my prayer, but I'm kind of, what I've really noticed in recovery is everyone is really good at kind of constructing sentences, and I've realized that all my life I've kind of I don't know, I can't memorize stuff like that. It's like I could only memorize one quote per book for GCSEs sort of, you know, exams at school, and so I'm just doing it really basically. But what I've really noticed about myself, I've built on what the things that you've specifically said, because they're the things that really stick in my head, like the tsunami of feelings. And you mentioned self-condemnation. And what I realized this morning is that I go to sleep and I wake up with everything that's ever happened to me in that moment. So I wake up, rather than thinking, okay, today is Sunday and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, I'm like overwhelmed in every single moment of my life for every mistake I've ever made. So like my whole, like this moment in time, well, not this moment in time, but this kind of, everything is overshadowed and overclouded by everything I've ever done wrong. So I was literally walking down the road with, if you drew a picture, it'd be like an attack, literally an attack of a million aliens with like guilt and self-hate and all around my head, you know. And it's like, so that's what I've kind of realized that I need to ask God to remove, is that kind of going into the new day, into a fresh minute with everything from my past. Like it's a whole lot of people invited, no, not invited to the party. Do you see what I mean? It's just like a million people shouting at me. And it's like, no wonder I can't live and be in the present moment, because I've just got this earth-shattering noise of everything that I've done wrong in my life. And it's like, just go away. Today is a new day. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome. So I want to say a couple of things. First of all, nature abhors a vacuum. So when we ask something to be removed, it's really, we can't even have a second without something filling that in. So you're almost better asking for a replacement. It's almost like replace these thoughts with gratitude. And by the way, it's really hard to have gratitude and those things at the same time. I mean, maybe people can, but it's really hard. So there is a book out there by Anne Lamott called Thanks, Help, Wow. And that is her prayer. It's just that. Thanks, help, wow, right? That's it. Easy to memorize, right? And so something as simple as that. And I was a high school teacher the first 4 years out of college. And I had students in the class that there was just no way they could memorize. They just weren't wired to do that. They just couldn't do it. And I would come up with other ways to test them because they had the knowledge, but they just sucked at taking tests. They were just really bad at memorizing, right? So, and that's one of the things. Sometimes we're wired not to do that. So, Joe, I really want to encourage you. Something as simple as thanks, help, wow
Yeah.
is awesome. All right. Something as simple as that to replace all that stuff with just, right, thank you that I woke up today. Thank you that I'm alive today. Right. It needs to be replaced with something else. Otherwise, what happens, even if you set it aside, it comes roaring back. And that's and that's literally because nature abhors a vacuum. So thank you for sharing that, Joe. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Selma, to you.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi, Cheryl. I think this one really is the crux, right? We identify in 6, but then we ask to have these things removed. So wording it in a way that's meaningful to each of us is really a great idea. So I don't resonate with there being a God out there and someone I'm supposed to do something for, or to me, it's all one love energy. So I wrote my creator, higher self, divine guidance. I am now willing to let go of deeply embedded old ways of seeing life. I pray that you now remove from me my unhelpful traits of envy, longing, comparison, and coming up always on the short end, emotional intensity, resistance to taking action, and the deep feeling that something is missing, which results in a chronic sense of emptiness. As all these stand in my way of connecting to you and living in happiness, joy, and freedom, and therefore usefulness to others. And I listened to what you were saying, Cheryl, about we don't tell God that they are not. But to me, if I'm in the fetal position in depression, I'm not useful to anything. I'm not useful to
That's true.
myself, right? So
Yeah.
those things will just shut me down, and I feel that overwhelming sense of hopelessness, and I have no idea why I'm feeling that way. It's like peeling away every day the layers of, my husband said to me yesterday, "Are you all right?" And just that question, I was able to decipher, unpack what was bothering me, and it all boiled down to comparison. Again, my sister, my brother, their yards, my yard, they did it right, I'm doing it wrong. Oh my God, I can't keep up with my own self-criticism and feeling of lack, insecurity, lack of. So the being grateful is good, but I think the key is just recognize, I mean, it's helpful, but I've done that all along. I know I have a lot to be grateful for. As a 4, that mantra, I have everything I need right now in this moment to grow. I can't get to that when I'm feeling that shut down. So I just need to say, please remove this from me. Help see what's getting in my way, because I'm sunk.
Yep. Or both.
So,
All right. So real quick, you may say whichever of these stands in the way, right? Because you had a big old list there.
yeah.
So the only caution that I have on that big old list is, and that's great because you want all of those to be
Right
removed from
now,
you, right? Yeah, right now. So I would say that, but that just means you need to watch for all of those. And now I'm going to use a metaphor here. If you've ever knitted or anything, you get this skein of wood, of yarn, and you've got to find the end, because
right.
in order to unravel it and use it, you have to find the one that is the one that is the key to everything, right?
Yeah.
And my husband and I do that when we're cleaning a room. It's like, okay, where's the thread that we need to pull in order to begin this, because you can't start in the middle, right? And so with you, that would be probably worthy of a really nice journal to say, of all of these, because they're all together, which one is the thread that I want to really, really pull, that all these other things will come. And it does sound like comparison, probably, which was your first one. It's also what you talked about with your siblings and stuff, is can you pull on that and then watch for that? But I think, and once again, I love the fact that everybody is whatever is the greater power, higher power, God, whatever it is that you can hang on to and say, yes, this can help me. That's what we want in here. And I think that's absolutely what Bill W wanted for everybody to be able to do, because life sucks sometimes and life is hard sometimes, right? And when it is that, we do absolutely need something to hang on to that's greater and wiser than us. We have to, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how atheists even survive, because I so depend upon the fact that I believe there is an entity out there that is greater, bigger, more powerful, more loving, more forgiving, more all the good things that I want to be. There's something out there that is that I just get to plug into. And I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that, Salma. And once again, when you were talking about, right, you need something that kind of does that center. That's why that when I say memorize your mantra, memorize the prayer, because when you have that in you, even if it's just thanks, help, wow, right, or one of those, right, help, that's it, God's hearing you, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and if you can do that, then that means that brings you back to something, you plug into a power that is greater than yours. And that's what we need to do. So thank you so much for your share. I appreciate it.
It's like the line, no human power could relieve our obsession, right? But our higher, step 7.
Something, exactly. There is something greater. Thank you so much. All right, Jasmine, to you.
Okay, so I wrote for my prayer, God, I give to you all that I was, I am, and I ever will be. I give to you my will. I give you my true and false self. I humbly ask that you remove from me this overinflated sense of pride and control. Oh God, please forgive me for my need to be needed and cleanse me of my way, so that I may be of maximum use to myself and others. So it was really great for me I haven't memorized it either, but it was good for me to write it out, because I used to be very generic with my prayers and just like, and generic is good. Sometimes I need fast to ask for help. But sometimes not being specific is like, okay, you need help. I need help, but with what? Like, I think my higher power, who I choose to call God, is like, but with what? I mean, this is my belief. The specificity is more powerful and more intentional. So I was glad that I was able to sort that out, because I have these defects that, they are what I've used for so long in their comfort zone. So I need to specifically target what I'm trying to let go of, because sometimes generic isn't good for me because it's deep. It's deep at the core. I go into a trance. I lose consciousness. I've been on vacation with my family of origin all week, and it's just like I need to know exactly what I'm trying to aim for or to accomplish in order to keep my center. So I'll pass.
And Jasmine, I want to say that that's also so we can see it. Once we see it, we bring it out of the blind spot and we see it. If we then go generic with that, we don't get to see the recovery, right? And what really does keep us going is we see our recovery almost always in the rearview mirror, right? It's really rare that we see it right here. But it's like when you can name that, and then you see yourself acting differently, you see yourself showing up in the world differently, that's when we get like, oh, okay. Because part of this, for long-term recovery, to keep going back to God, we do need to see the recovery. If it always feels the same and it never ever changes, it's really hard to stay on the course. It just is, right? That's the reason we want to grow spiritually, because we want to be able to see that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jasmine.
Can Jasmine reread her prayer? Would that be okay to request?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Jasmine, are you okay doing that? Okay, good.
I'm okay. God, I give to you all that I was, I am, and ever will be. I give you my will. I give you my true and false self. I humbly ask that you remove from me this overinflated sense of pride and control. Oh God, please forgive me for my need to be needed. Cleanse me of my ways so that I may be of maximum use to myself and others.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. And if I don't know if you're at a place that you could put that in the chat too. I don't know if you are, Jasmine, but if you are, that would be good. And then Shirley can pick it up from there.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Cool deal.
Thank you, Jasmine. All right, Becca, to you.
Yeah, I'm still kind of struggling with narrowing it down. And in my own life, it's the same thing. That ball of yarn, everything seems to connect to everything else. So, like in my life, my paperwork, my overwhelm at keeping the house managed, my, having habits, using scrolling and TV and food, all of it seems like if I could only get the house together, I would be more peaceful because I'd be living in more serene environment, and then I wouldn't need to eat. And that it's just it goes around in this spinning. So I started talking to ChatGPT, which is an amazing self-discovery thing that I've been using for a couple months. And I asked it, all I can see is the trees. How do I see the forest? And what it's helping me come to, because I'm asking, well, what is the root of all this? And it's got to do with perfectionism and over researching. I mean, Richard will tell you if I research something, I won't make the decision for a year. Or I finally make the decision, or if we do make a decision, then I go back to see if it was the right one. So it's, I know it's got to do with perfectionism and idealism. And even when I make progress, all I see is what I haven't done yet. So I'm really kind of struggling with how to narrow it down and work on one thing. And what it suggested was don't even start with any action. Start with looking at the pattern of how I spin out on, I don't know, I know there's some people here old enough to remember Ed Sullivan, but he had this guest that would put plates on pool cues, and there were 30 of them or 50 of them, and he had to run around and keep all this plate spinning. And I've described that that's how my life feels ever since I was a teenager. So anyway, and it's got to do with control, wanting everything together before I can finally.
So I'm gonna go back to the yarn. Okay, if you just grab the yarn and start pulling, it's a mess. But if you study it and really look at it, you can find it, right? And so I think maybe your prayer should just be for help with that. Maybe that's where you're at. And maybe all fours, I don't know, maybe is just for help with what is the first thread that I need to pull? Show me that. Maybe that's it. I want to say too, I had rewritten the prayer at one point in time, instead of removing, to basically give me something instead, right? Which was an openness toward whatever. And I did revert back to help me remove the resistance to something. But at one point in time, I had moved it in the direction of a positive, and maybe fours need to do that. I don't know. I'm not a four, and maybe you move in that direction. But Becca, I think it's completely perfect to be able, right? Especially, and from what Selma said too, that there's all these things and you don't know what thread to pull, is to pray to see the thread that you're supposed to pull first. And no guilt at all that there's 14 threads. Okay, if that's what it is, it's what it is, right? That's what life is for you. And maybe that's what life is always like. I don't know, right? But then you can say, okay, what is the thread that I pull to get this moving forward, but in complete forgiveness of yourself. This is not a fault that is making this happen. This is the way your life is working. Okay, all right, I accept that and love myself through it, right? And I think because I do hear I identify with it, because as an 8, I've also been told to put a lid on it all the time. And I do think with 4s, right? It's too much emotion, too much. Put a lid. And then you get, so somebody is not muted. Anyway, so I think that maybe for the 4s, as part of step 7 is just that says, help me to see that whatever is that first thread to pull, right? And just give it whatever time it needs to do that. I love working with Michael Naylor because Michael Naylor believes we work on one thing at a time, right? And Selma, even just from the thing you said, where it's like these 14 things and I'd like all of them gone. Yeah, me too, right? It doesn't work that way. We're one thing at a time. But I think there is the fear that I'm going to pick the wrong one. And then that's going to be in the middle of the yarn, that's going to mess everything up. So maybe that first prayer is just help me see what's the one thread that I should pull to pull this together. So Dave, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So, first of all, I had to simplify this because I can't memorize something if it's complicated and long. And even if I had memorized it, I changed it anyway, just now after we started. So, here it goes. So, greater power, I am now willing that you should have all of me. I pray that you now remove from me the defense of lust for intensity when it stands in the way of my usefulness. Help me to live my life in alignment with you. Amen. And I didn't like the word if that you had in there before. I thought, well, of course it does. So why should it say if? But when you explained it and it said, it may not always, I thought, well, that's true. It doesn't always. Sometimes lust for intensity is a wonderful thing, so, but when it does sometimes and it doesn't sometimes. So that's when it's a problem, is when it does stand in the way. And I didn't say to my usefulness, to you and my fellows, because it even stands in the way of my usefulness to myself sometimes. It's like, sometimes I'm so focused on that I'm not even doing the things that I want to do, that I have said are important to me to do. So, and really to separate myself from that greater power, or I just feel like I have a connection with my greater power with every other person anyway. So to me, it's kind of artificial to separate those things. So I just don't. So the same thing with all of me, all of me is all of me. That's all I need on that. So, what I really love the mantra for type 8, because I'm pretty sure it's the shortest one of all the types, and that way it's easy for me to remember. But it also says everything that I need to remember, which is, in my vulnerability lies my strength. That doesn't need any elaboration for me. So
Yep.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Okay, so I'm stealing your stuff. I mean, use the when instead of the if. I'm using it for sure, especially because I put wise guidance, right? Like I know wise. So if I say when, right, when it stands in the way, then I don't have to say wise guidance. I can just say guidance, right? And then because taking stupid guidance would stand in the way, right? So anyway, I'm going to change my stuff. This is the only reason I'm doing this, so that I can get the good prayer, right? Okay, thank you. All right, Jennifer, to you.
I love it. Yeah, when definitely is more 8-ish. I think it's definitely more 8-ish. So I'm just so glad to be back. I've missed the last 3 classes, and part of that was a bout of COVID that laid me lower than I had expected that it would on a second go round. So really glad to be here and back. And I've caught up on, on the work to the extent that you can with the videos. And so I'm gonna read my 7-step prayer, but all right, just a tiny bit of sharing since it's been a minute. Just this morning, I had a situation where there were just things that happened that weren't things that were easy, or, all of this sort of thing. And then as I was dealing with one without any victimhood or victimization coming up, I was putting my mother's pills in her pill box, and I could feel it. I was like, no, please don't let it happen. And they spilled to the ground. And I was just overcome with the temptation of for some people you ban from me. Why did this happen? The victim mentality. And I was like, no, I am not a victim. I am not a victim. I am not a victim of the world I see. I am not a victim. I was just saying it. And then it was like, oh, but wait a minute. The 7-step prayer. I'm supposed to ask that this defense of victimization be lifted from me. So then I didn't have it memorized, but I was like, please relieve me of the burden of victimization, of victim mentality. Please relieve me of the burden. And so the two together, just the fact that I was able to step in there and it was there and it took a minute and, it's still some residuals of it, but it was just really, really helpful. And so I'm going to read my thing, but in order to do that, did you all share your mantras last time? Did you
No,
share?
that's going to be next. That's going to be the
Okay.
assignment for now is the mantra. For next
Oh,
week is what we're going to talk about next week is the mantra.
okay. Because
I
I rewrote
introduced
my
it because
mantra.
I wanted to kind of bring it back, but the mantra, yeah. So next week is when we're going to talk about and really work on memorizing mantras as part of that makeup next week.
Okay. Well, I rewrote my mantra months ago and I use it. It's on my phone. I mean, I use it multiple times a day. So a little bit of it is baked into my seven
Mine
step.
too. Okay.
Inner guide, thank you for loving and caring for all of me. Please relieve me of the burden of victim mentality. Grant me the willingness to live my life with courage, trust, and faith.
Nice, short, sweet, easy to memorize.
I needed
There you go.
that's what I needed to, yeah. For me,
Me
for a
too.
prayer, it's got to be something that is akin to what I actually ask for when it happens. Like when I spill the pills, it's like, please relieve me of the burden of this victim mentality.
Yes.
So,
And I love, the third step prayer talks about relieve me of
I
the
know.
burden of self. And I
Yes.
like the idea of viewing things as, because it is easier for us to want them removed when we feel the burden of them, right? I think that's awesome. Okay. And once again, Elham and Richard, I've got your names down here. You will be the people that share when we come back. Kim, you're the last share before we move on.
Hi. So yeah, I think I've rewritten mine, I don't know, 10 times now. Part of it is I'm trying to make it short enough for me to memorize, and I almost feel like it's still too long, but here goes. Spirit of love, I am now willing for you to have all of me. I pray you remove from me my need to future trip and catastrophize. Help me to trust you and take the opposite action so I can better connect with you and my fellows.
Beautiful. Awesome. I'm so glad that everybody's working on these prayers. And once again, it was like, when you shoot for the moon, you don't like well, most of the time, you don't make it to the moon. You just shoot for the moon. And so when I said, okay, everybody memorize your prayers, I mostly did not expect that people would or could that quickly. And also they get changed. And I knew that when we were sharing here, we're going to pick up things that someone else said that said, oh yeah, that'll help me. And once again, the shorter and I'm with you, Dave. I love the fact that our mantra is that short. I don't have to memorize 18 words. I got like 5, so it's awesome. So, and that does make it easier, by the way. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. Thank you, everybody who shared your prayer. Okay. Once again, in the breakout rooms, today we are sharing the type question of the week. So the question that was on section 2. If you answered it, and most people did, I hope. And you can share your prayer if you want to do that. But even if you do that, please read the question first. Read that question, the reflection question. And if you don't have it in front of you and somebody else is your type, they can read that type question because we're answering the question of the week. And then once again, I can almost guarantee you will all be distracted by the prayer and there's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to share the prayer, that's fine. But everybody read the type question first. If you would, I would appreciate that. And then you're going to, Lori, are we good right now to go into breakout rooms? All right. So we are going into the breakout rooms. Thank you. Go ahead, Alham.
Hello. Thank you so much for helping us to be aware. That's for me is very important because I usually am lost what I need to pay attention, and you're helping us just little steps at a time.
Good.
You're dividing the 12 steps to million steps for me, which I like. And I paid extra attention to find out what is about this prayer, what I need to put in that spot. And I wanted to cover everything. So for me, is neglecting my personal need. And that was one of the character of the question, the character defect things that we had to. So I wrote my creator, my higher self, and my goodness. That's my higher power. my own goodness, my higher self. And I know I didn't create the universe. So whatever did is higher than me. So that's my higher power. And why I chose neglecting my personal needs, because as being three, maybe I'm not, but so far this is what I am. I usually don't pay attention to my own needs. And I think it's all about me, but I focus to others to get that attention. And then I don't have I feel lost, like what I am doing, is it for them or for me? And at the end, I never am satisfied. And sometimes, however, with neglecting, I stopped neglecting my personal needs. I have good food plans, use all of the tools of my program for recovery, like literatures, sponsorship, doing my homeworks like you gave, all of this. Exercise, meditation, taking my vitamins on time, show boundaries to others who are not, who are like too much in my space and I don't feel comfortable. Make my life bigger with friends, fun, activities, and all of the self-care. I think if I do that, I fill up that empty holes in me, then I feel fulfilled and happy, satisfied, then I am ready to be there for other people.
So if all those changes can happen, you will be a saint. I don't think saints exist today, but it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're asking for, okay, so I want to say the original 7-step prayer and what Bill W. said, right, is all these defects of character. And I'm saying, let's pick one, and not because God couldn't do them all, but because we can't see them all. As these things start happening, imagine if you can't see them, but they're all changing, then 2 years from now you go, oh, wow, my life is very full. But during the time you didn't see it happening, it's hard to stick with it if you don't see the changes. So even prayers, to me, this is going to sound weird. I don't pray so that God can hear me. I pray so I can hear me, because God already knows what I need. I don't need to do that. He already knows. He can, thanks, help, wow, that's enough. All the other stuff is so that I'm hearing what it is that I'm asking for. God already knows what I need, right? So yeah, so I will say, I don't know about the other types, 4 certainly, and I know you're a 3, 4-ish, whatever, Elham. And I just think that this 18,000 things that you're trying to change, by the way, I'm not saying that's bad. Bill W. said, take away every single defective character I have, right? That's what the original 7-step prayer is. So that means it works for people. It does work, right? So I'm asking for us to pick 1 or 2 so that we can see it change, right? But I'm not saying that having all of them there is a bad thing. It's just you're not going to be able to see it as clearly as if you're asking for one thing. So I think that's the major difference there. Go ahead, Alma.
I just want to say, I use this as an example, but what I meant is self-care. And
as the one, yeah. So with all these other things, yep.
Those are just examples. And I neglect that. I always say tomorrow, later, not now. And that's what I meant. And then it's not being perfect. It's just progress. Just
because you're human. Yep.
If I do just a little of everything, it helps me gradually. I never can be perfect, to feel better about who I am.
That you're moving in the right direction. Yeah.
Moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I never can be perfect.
You bet. Richard, to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Richard, to you.
Yeah, thank you, Cher. I wanted to make some comments about the discussion that was going on around replacement. And, you know, you had mentioned, and Dave was talking about this as well, how important it is to have something to replace those defenses. And I'm in full agreement with you on that, because otherwise there's an emptiness. Also, and I think it was Teresa who put this in the WhatsApp chat. The grieving part, anyway, for me, the grieving part is essential. That that I mistook my ego for myself, as a lot of us do. And so letting go of that stuff that I thought was me, for me, it requires going through a grieving process. I can't emphasize that more strongly. The other thing, when I was listening to, because after all, there is an arrow, if you will, or a line between 1 and 4, and I know that there are a lot of type 4s here, and I hear perfectionism over and over again. There are times when perfectionism is a good thing. So it's not always a bad thing. In my younger life, I had I was a small business owner in 2 different situations. And I'm going to give an example of one of them. I did car repair, and it was a very special thing because I would go to where that person was working or at their home or whatever, so they didn't have to drop off their car. And I would do the work there. And believe me, my perfectionism on repairing their automobiles was essential, not only to keep me in business, but I had an awful lot of happy customers as a result of that. I couldn't say, oh, okay, I put in, I know you have 6 spark plugs. I did the tune up. I only replaced 5 of them. Don't worry about it. You'll hear some. No, absolutely not. I had to do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely true. And that's when it stands in the way of my usefulness, right? It's like the perfection is sometimes, yeah, it needs to be. I mean, I hope when, they're sending somebody a missile or whatever up to the moon, I'm hoping that they do it perfectly, right? Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for recovering with us.